Good morning and welcome to Through the Lens on one of those dog days of August 2009. It's a small world for the following reasons. My wife and I had dinner with Walter and Marjorie Chu earlier this year, whom we had met for the first time at Maris Grove. Conversation led to the United States Merchant Marine Service and eventually to the possibility of doing an interview on Through the Lens. Walter preferred not to do the interview as he was in the engine room of a Liberty ship and didn't see a great deal from that point. However, he had a lifelong friend by the name of Bill Snell. Bill and Walter were classmates at the Merchant Marine Academy in 1943. Turned out that Bill would do the interview since he was a deck officer on the Liberty ship. And Bill Snell, that Walter knew for all of his life, turned out to be the same Bill Snell and his wife Ruth, who we knew for 20 years or so back at Wallingford in the 70s or 80s, somewhere in that period of time. So it is a small world.
Indeed.
And Bill, here we are thanks to Walter.
Right, exactly.
When you and I sat down initially to go over your career in the Merchant Marines,
Yes.
we spent, I believe, about 2.5 hours
Probably right.
with an exceptionally interesting career. Today we'll be shooting for somewhere around 30 minutes, so
Okay.
we'll concentrate on an area in 1943 while you were at the academy.
Yes.
And through your first voyage, and at that time both you and Walter were cadets at the Merchant Marine Academy.
Correct. Right.
For starters, let's take a look at what was occurring in the North Atlantic and Mediterranean Sea during the 1940s. And on that chart, we'll note that in 1941, 42, and it was not until 1943 that the U.S. was able to build more ships than were sunk
That's right.
in the North Atlantic and the Mediterranean Sea. The bottom line of this is the fact that both you and Walter went through this cadet training on your first voyage.
Correct.
And you were in dangerous waters all of the time on that cruise.
That's right.
This is evidenced by your battle ribbons, which will be viewing on the television at this moment. Bill, if you could give us some insight to the Merchant Marine Service in 1943 when you went in, what the program was.
Right. Well, it was just building up at that time. The United States recognized that they had a tremendous logistics problem to get materials overseas to support our troops, and they needed trained people. There were not that many at that time, so the United States Maritime Service was developed, and early in '43 by Franklin D. Roosevelt. The training program was developed. They felt that they needed something like roughly 200,000 merchant seamen and about 16,000 merchant officers. And in order to do that, they had to be trained and had to be licensed. So The Merchant Marine Academy was established, as well as some other seaman training places. And the academy at Kings Point, New York, they bought the former Walter P. Chrysler estate and started building a whole campus of buildings and so forth. And when I got there in April of '43, we were living in CCC barracks that had been moved in until the quarters were finished. But we received basic training as a deck cadet in seamanship and navigation, rules of the road, things of that nature. And then we went to sea as our third class project, which was a 6-month period, where we were assigned to cargo ships and tankers, and got our training as, I was going to say apprentices, as interns, and we were right in the thick of the battle all the time, learning our way.
Could you tell us a little bit about Liberty ships and the crew that would be on a Liberty ship?
Sure. Liberty ships were a design that was already in existence. The Brits had it. They gave it to us. They were originally designed to be riveted ships, but the U.S. turned them out and used the more modern methods of welding. And there were 2,710 Liberty ships built during the wartime period, and a great number of tankers, which were called T2s, and they were literally or figuratively a bridge across the Atlantic. They were not a handsome ship at all. They were sort of cranky. They rolled and pitched excessively, but they had about a 10,000-ton capacity, so they were what was needed for that time period. And from the East Coast, we would make up small convoys that would go up to Halifax, gather more ships there, and then cross the Atlantic. Some went to Murmansk. Fortunately, I never had that duty. And we crossed the Atlantic. Some of the convoys were over 100 ships, and we were escorted by Canadian corvettes and U.S. destroyer escorts and some destroyers. And we had to maneuver at times. When we went across, the U-boat scare was still very high, and in fact, we lost one ship out of that convoy, and then went up around the top of Ireland and came down through the Irish Sea and landed at Liverpool.
What would how many people would be on the crew of a Liberty ship?
Liberty ship crew was about 32 men. Engineers, deck officers, oilers, wipers, and bosun and able-bodied seamen and ordinary seamen. And you were made up into essentially 3 watches, and each mate had a particular watch. And we manned those with very few men, really, but it worked very well. Then we also had, on many of the ships, we had an armed guard, U.S. Navy armed guard, which consisted of an ensign or a lieutenant JG. Usually they were green right out of 90-day wonder school. And then about 20 to 25 seamen who acted as gunners.